My name is Shainoa, and I'm going to talk about retributive versus restorative justice. Retribution means that guilty people deserve to be punished. This idea is commonly accepted. However, there is a dangerous tendency to slip from retributive justice to an emphasis on revenge. Vengeance is a matter of retaliation. Revenge focuses on the personal heart and typically involves resentment and anger. Such emotions are potentially quite destructive because these intense feelings often lead people to overreact, so resulting punishments can be excessive. The pain suffered by the families of the victims cannot be healed simply to outright the retribution of capital punishment or by revenge. What the argument for retribution boils down to is no more than a desire of vengeance masked as a principle of peace. Capital punishment is not operative retributive. If there is any way to justify capital punishment, the retribution must be met out surely, and that is not clearly the case. In just 1% of murders, the prosecutors seek the death penalty. So capital punishment is imposed randomly. Whether you receive the death penalty depends not on what you have done, but what you committed your crime, what color your skin is, and how much money you have. Let's talk about human rights. Central to fundamental human rights is that they are inalienable. They may not be taken away even if a person has committed the most atrocious of crimes. Human rights apply to all of us, to the worst of us as well as to the best of us, which is why they protect all of us. Capital punishment, which is simply a state sanction retributive murder, reinforces the same disrespect for life as homicide. It exists a risk of executing the innocent, so the key principle of retribution is violated. People should get what they deserve. On the other side, restorative justice aims to understand what has happened, and this is the basis for the state. It brings together both victim and perpetrator, allows the perpetrator to see the damage he has caused, and allows the victim to grasp what may have motivated the perpetrator. So compassion and understanding are allowed. Restorative processes which promote dialogue between the offender and the victim show the highest rate of victim satisfaction, true responsibility by the offender, and reduce recidivism. Restorative justice requires offenders to act in ways that will restore the dignity, autonomy, and well-being of the victims, as well as their own. So, I'm going to conclude saying that we cannot teach that killing is wrong just by killing.
Retributive justice. Retributive justice considers that punishment, if proportionate, is a morally acceptable response to crime, with an eye to the satisfaction and psychological benefits it can bestow to the aggrieved party, its intimates, and society. Restorative justice is a theory of justice that focuses on the social movement to institutionalize peaceful approaches to harm, problem solving, and violations of legal human rights. There are two major problems fueling the growth of the restorative model. The first of these is the inability of our justice system to positively affect crime rates. Our current practices and philosophies have done little to relieve overwhelming fear of crime. The second motivation is that the legal process has become less and less concerned with the victim. Focus is no longer on the person who is affected by the most by the offender's wrongdoing. Instead, focus is placed on the state. Victim satisfaction with the overall outcome has been ignored. But on the contrary, in the case of murder, the victim is not able to penalize, nor is the person justified unless the offender is similarly punished. The restorative model proposes to resolve these issues using techniques which involve the victim and contribute to offender rehabilitation and reintegration. Restorative approaches to crime date back thousands of years. In Israel, the Pentateuch specified restitution for property crimes. In Babylon, the Code of Hammurabi prescribed restitution as a sanction for property offenses also. And in Rome, the 12 tables ordered convicted thieves to pay double the value of stolen goods. As you can see, these restorative methods or approaches have been traditionally for nonviolent, less heinous crimes. Some of the processes of the restorative justice process: victim-offender mediation, family group conferencing, restorative or community conferencing, community restorative boards, restorative circles, circles of support and accountability, and sentencing circles. These measures do not seem adequate for a violent, heinous offender like a murderer or rapist. For an intense crime, there must be an adequate, intense punishment, not counseling and daycare like you would find a child that is caught in the middle of his or her parents' divorce. In ethics and law, the idea let the punishment fit the crime is the principle that the severity of penalty for the misdeed or wrongdoing should be reasonable and proportional to the severity of the infraction. Concept is common to most cultures throughout the world. One finds in the Bible that the popular expression, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, and this almost seems a perfect statement for capital punishment. But one must ask, if not through capital punishment, how is someone supposed to be punished for the crime taking another human's life? Also, we must really think hard about the pain and suffering, not that of the criminal or murderer, but that of which the victim and his or her family suffered as well. The 19th century philosopher Immanuel Kant wrote, "Judicial punishment can never be used merely as a means to promote some other good for the criminal himself or for civil society, but instead it must be, in all cases, imposed on him only to the ground that he has committed a crime." Kant would argue that punishment is a matter of justice, and that if the guilty are not punished, then justice is not done. Retribution is the rationale for the existence and limits of law. Retributivism answers the question, why punish, by saying that the offender deserves punishment for his or her offenses. As simple as the statement sounds, its underlying meaning contains a couple important points about morality and law. Retributivism, as a theory of punishment, requires retribution as a rationale for law. Likewise, the retributivist perspective that law exists for a reason is a moral reason. All crime, even victimless crime, involves a social harm, a moral harm. So violating the law not only offends against the law of the land, but the moral code of the land. Murder is the most awful crime that exists, and the one that our society deems heinous enough to punish with the most extreme form of punishment. We must continue supporting capital punishment so that due justice is given to those who violate society's rules in such a drastic way, and to ensure that future murders do not occur.